Hello, welcome to the latest Business Spotlight podcast. I'm joined today by James Rees, and James is the founder, the managing director of Razorthorn. So, James, welcome to the call.
Hello, Gavin. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
James, tell us a little bit about Razorthorn. We understand it's a cybersecurity type business. What is it precisely you do? Why did you set it up?
Okay, so Razorthorn, is about 17 years old. We very much came out of the famous credit crunch of 2007, 2008. And InfoSec at the time wasn't really kind of well understood. It was still, people wanted it, but they didn't really understand it. And there was a lot of organizations out there who were really starting to kind of take notice of it. And I'd worked for a number of different firms over the years, and I decided in my infinite wisdom that I would start a company that kind of focused a lot more on the customer rather than on how much we could get out of the customer and doing a good job. And we started very much with just kind of general consultancy. Somebody would say, "Could you tell me if my network is secure?" We would go in, we would have a look, we would let them know. And then advise them. And then we moved on to auditing. So PCI DSS, which is the standard for taking credit cards and transacting credit cards. And we did a lot of that. That turned into more what we call penetration testing and so on and so forth until we kind of got to where we are today, where we can pretty much cater for anything within the information security space. And we kind of were very small for a long time, but we grew quite exponentially out of the last kind of lockdown. And when ransomware became really, really painful, became big business items for the cyber criminals, it also meant a lot of organizations who were panicking because they'd all kind of gone remote, and everything had changed and all the technology had changed. That's really when I think security started to really hit the business world, and people started to understand the importance of it, especially in the early days with those first few people who got ransomware, and you started to see people being ransomed for millions upon millions upon millions of pounds or dollars or whatever. And that's really what pushed Razorthorn and a number of other security firms actually suddenly way up in profitability and needs.
Yeah.
So
It sounds like this is a very fast moving space for you. And I guess therefore your business needs to be quite agile. How do you manage that with your team? And is there a lot of training involved or ongoing training, professional development within your team? You're keeping an eye, I guess, on what's happening out there in cyberspace, if that's the correct terminology that I'm using there. What is it that you do to maintain that agility?
That's a very good question, and a lot of it, information security people are probably a little bit of a different breed of individual. We have to adapt very, very quickly. As you may have heard on various other sort of media that I've mentioned before, if any of your viewers have seen any of that, it's very much a kind of, we are almost fighting this kind of war. We've got the light side of the force, which is the information security professionals or cybersecurity professionals, as they tend to be called now. And then you have kind of like the other side of the fence, which is the people who are trying to ransomware people or people who are trying to get in and steal data and release it out in the big wild, whether that's state sponsored, whether that's from cash, whether it's an amalgamation of both, which is what a lot of us believe now. And we have to understand the tactics that the bad guys do as much as have to understand how to defend against it. And in many respects, they will adapt a lot quicker on getting into the systems that we're trying to protect. And we're kind of learning from those types of attacks or those early day attacks and then dealing with it. So we have this thing called zero-day vulnerability, good example. So software could be developed and it can all work fine until one day one of the bad guys goes, I found a bug which allows us to exploit that. Well, it takes us a little while to figure out what's going on. They're exploiting it and then actively exploiting it very, very quickly. It takes us a bit more time to react because we've got to figure out what they're doing, why they're doing it, whether it's a software problem, whether it's a firmware problem, or whether it's social engineering. And there's a lot of different attack patterns. We use a lot of Sun Tzu in a lot of what we say. Know your enemy, know yourself and your enemy, and you can protect yourself against pretty much any type of threat. but the budgets in InfoSec are still relatively small compared to the budgets for IT or other parts of the business. So we're very, very limited in what we can do, because it's not just about vendors and products and your technological stack. You also have to have very, very good incident response people, and you can train that into people, but truly good incident response people have a certain type of mindset, certain type of psychology, and a certain type of experience. So all my guys are many, many years experienced. We're continuously testing one another on our knowledge and new things that are coming out from the client base. We've got certain certifications that we follow as well, and that we have to maintain. But yeah, sometimes it's a bit fly by the seat of your pants. Other times, you can react and you can deal with things very, very quickly, and this is why we have to be very adaptable. So it's a tough thing to keep up to date.
Yeah,
but we do what we can.
And an important aspect of your business, I'm sure. And of course, the other part of the education, I'm guessing, is educating your customers, because and I'm imagining, you can tell me if I got this right or not, but your marketing is really going to be kind of more coaching in style, as to say, these are the kind of issues that are out there, because many of us are probably completely unaware. Would that be a fair point?
Absolutely, yeah. We see, so for instance, what we tend to see in the business is that, if, say, a manufacturing company suddenly gets hit, you're going to find that the bad guys are going to go for a number of manufacturing companies. It's kind of a bit of a problem in the States at the moment. For instance, within the healthcare, you've probably seen, lots of hospitals are being hit, pharmaceutical companies being hit by the bad guys, the ransomware guys, because they know they're going to get payout. And it takes one or two of those organizations to get hit before sometimes the other organizations kind of go, wow, actually, what are we doing? Are we doing anything?
Yeah.
What can we do? Let's get people in to kind of advise us. And it sometimes, unfortunately, it takes that kind of event to really push it. Awareness is getting better, but it's still a bit slower than probably a lot of InfoSec people and indeed business people would like, because nobody wants to have some bad guy nick your data, encrypt a load of it, and then try to bill you for 20 million to get it back.
So would that be an example of where your marketing would be quite targeted? Because, in the example that you've just given, you'd be marketing into the healthcare sector in the States, the pharmaceuticals, and saying, this is what's going on. I mean, I guess everybody's under threat, but at least they're tuned in at that point of time, and you have the opportunity to go in and say, A, we can diagnose what the risk may be to you, and B, we can present you with a solution. I'm assuming that's essentially your business model.
In essence, yeah. I mean, the marketing changed rather dramatically again with the lockdowns, and people now working more from home. Nobody really does big events anymore, or they may do the big events, but they don't do the little kind of Thursday after work meet up and have a beer and talk about things that you're doing. So we rapidly changed, and we started doing podcasts, and we started doing informational pieces, and we found a lot of people who were the demographic of people who were watching us were business owners, because they didn't have a clue what malware is. They don't have a clue what ransomware is. And trying to get that information out of, obviously, a consulting firm, if you're saying, oh, we're a bit worried about this, business people kind of go, well, I'm not going to get sold out straight away. So our marketing is all around educational piece. This is what the bad guys are thinking. This is how they attack. This is what you need to watch out for. And we have had a massive influx of new customers. And it's not just new customers who are watching the podcasts. It's also customers who initially approached us and then gone away and watched the podcast, because then they learn a little bit more about how we are. Because I think a lot of people still view InfoSec people as a bit suspicious, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, doomsayers, and all the rest of it. Where in actual fact, we're not, or a lot of us aren't. There still are a few out there. A lot of us want to do well to look after you and what's important and critical to you in your business, and to make sure that you're happy with it. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear you say that. The standard marketing is both about fear generation, but also visioning as well. and also, helping people to change their behaviors. Those are the three key elements in what you do. And that's why I think, an educational based approach is likely to be highly effective for you. Is there much of a sort of variation in your cohort, your demographic? Is it larger organizations generally or smaller organizations? What are you finding?
If you asked me that 5-10 years ago, it was predominantly the larger organizations, or organizations that had a reason to be really secure, especially those dealing with kind of like government institutions, that kind of thing. Nowadays, it is very eclectic, from manufacturing firms, car automotive firms, satellite building and maintenance firms, finance firms, which is the more traditional thing that we tended to see years ago. But nowadays, I mean, you'd be surprised. We will happily deal with smaller organizations, and we do like dealing with smaller organizations. More we can do to protect them with a lot less. Security doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be effective. And the closer we can get to an organization that is still in, its formative years, the better we can be, because we can build security in. It's like when you have it's like when you have your house. Quite often a lot of people surround their houses with, quite a big sturdy looking bush. Well, the reason you do that is to protect people from looking into your garden, people from getting in. You restrict movement into your property area apart from where you want it to be. It's the same thing for us. But like one of those big thorny bushes, it takes time for that thing to grow, and you want it to clip. You want to clip it properly. You want to make sure it's in the right configuration, so it doesn't, destroy the rest of your garden and impact on what you want, but it stops other people from, getting in and doing what they want.
I like the analogy. It's an interesting analogy. So, James, tell us where you think, and I know this is crystal ball gazing that I'm asking you to do, but where do you think the industry is going over the next couple of years?
The cybersecurity industry in the next couple of years is only going to go up. When you look at the stats from people like Cybersecurity Ventures and some of the other people who release stats on information security, we're rapidly reaching a point, and we've already reached a point where the cost of cybercrime is even more than the drug trade. Organized criminals are now seeing that, it's a lot easier to do cybercrime and get payouts than it is to move things from one place to another, illicit goods, whatever it may well be. So they're all turning to this, and all they're doing is they're just finding new ways to attack organizations. And it's expanding. I mean, just this morning I saw 4 new big attacks on big organizations where millions upon millions upon millions of dollars are involved. And not to mention cleanup costs. So we're going to continue to see this problem. And as the bad guys get better at what they do, because they now run like a business, they run like any other organization. You have many organizations giving services and support to larger hacking groups who will go out and then perform those attacks. And they're becoming harder and harder to get, to stop, and harder to kind of adapt against. And a lot of big businesses are going to have more and more problems. A lot of medium-sized businesses already have those problems, but you don't hear about it because a lot of organizations, unless they're big in the media or somebody shops them in the media, they're not going to turn around and say, we've had a security event. It kills their business to the customers. The customers will lose, they'll lose faith in that organization's ability to facilitate whatever it is they've facilitated before. So they keep it quiet, and more times you hear, I know I've been in front of business owners who are nearly in tears because their business is pretty much destroyed. They've got no way to recover, or very little way to recover, and they're desperate for help to just get back to a footing where they can just do what they do best, which is, provide profit for the shareholders of the business owners, and grow. And one big security event for even a larger size medium company can completely destroy that. So it's more important now to engage with InfoSec. As I said, it doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be effective.
I think that's a really salient point to end on. I like that. Doesn't need to be expensive, needs to be effective. James, it's been fascinating talking to you today, and I wish you the best of luck going forwards. It's good to know that there are people like you out there protecting business owners like me and others. So thank you very much for your time today.
No problems, Gavin, and look after yourself and everybody out there. Look after yourselves as well.